Hello, how are we doing today? Alright, my video got more views than I expected. I only expected a single view, so we're making progress here, I guess. Not that I'm really trying to be too popular, but let's see, one of the things to talk about. Alright, so I guess we should start with my background in magic, so when I was 12, um, I got interested in dream interpretation. And dream interpretation is basically the belief that there's hidden symbolism inside of your dreams, right? And during that time, when I was interested in that, this was in the early days of the internet, probably it was before 2010, I'm sure, probably about 2005, 2007. The internet was a pretty wild place. And I was researching things on Wikipedia, and I was looking up like world religions, guys like Zoroaster, the meaning of being a sage, what is magic, that sort of thing, just on Wikipedia. And I was trying to think of this idea that I hadn't heard of yet, which became the unified field theory. Wait, no, it's the law of one, right? The theory of everything, but as a law, the law of one. And then the search engine auto-completed me searching for the term law of one, and then I got contact with this book. It was a very interesting book. It was a science experiment about channeling. And that kind of became my bedrock of a lot of my seeking. It's a pretty high-level text. It reads like about a college-level book, right? And the interesting thing is, even though it's laced with very difficult jargon like intelligent infinity and distortion, things of that nature, for over the years I just kept reading it because I found it very fascinating. And ultimately, what I pulled away from it was my own meaning of life, which is to try and find love and happiness, which, you know, it's properly aligned in the American mind, because the goal of being an American is to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. So I kind of spent my life, you know, dedicated towards that goal of trying to find my own happiness. And, you know, it had some sections in the book about like mental balancing through magic, which I could give you the quick rundown here. I think that's around session 13. The book was written in 1984, which is a pretty interesting time for such a, I mean, if you read it yourself, you'd realize it's a pretty powerful book, right? Very peaceful, very wholesome, and very loving, but at the same time, very technical. And so, I mean, it also said later in the book, you know, much longer after me having read it, I realized that love is actually magic. So in the text, it talks about the way the universe was created, which is will formed sound, or the logos, or the focus, which then formed light. And that's kind of the creation story of our known universe. And another interesting thing is that our galaxy is, in the text, is considered the solar system we live in is considered a galaxy. And the universe is considered what we call the Milky Way galaxy. And that's kind of where the lines are drawn. And they use the old Greek term logos, which and logoi, which is a plural of the term logos, which it's kind of like a deeper part of some world religions, is the understanding of the logos. So when I say world religion, I mean mostly Catholic religion, right? And some parts of Greek as well, Greek philosophy. But that's not actually what I wanted to talk about today. What I'm trying to do here is kind of focus on what I wanted to say, which is there's like an essential need that most people have that they don't know. If RuneScape was like the real world, the proper way to learn EXP would be to have sessions of your character resting. Because, and this is a problem in places like New York, right? There's constant activity. And because there's so much activity, it's hard for the brain to kind of process things. Meditation and prayer and contemplation are the tools for the mind to integrate its own experience. So, I mean, let that be like an important thing to kind of remember or take away from this, is that it's really important to take time to kind of rest and process not just your emotions, your memories, but like, what do you want in life? What's your goal? And that sort of thing. And again, contemplation itself is a giant rabbit hole. When you start to understand the nature of like what a mind is, what is consciousness, that sort of thing. And the definition I was taught as to what consciousness is it's called the matrix, or the structure of the mind. Again, I'm referring to the tarot here, which is card one, the magician, which is to say that the structure of the mind is itself composed of something reminiscent of pure magic, or perhaps will, depending on who you are personally. And yeah, so I know I'm kind of deviating from the topic here, but the goal of the Arcana is to kind of find who you are as a person. And one of the things I kind of don't like about it is how the Arcana or the Tarot are treated something as purely mystical thinking, which it doesn't need to be, because you have the alchemist, right? The alchemist or temperance is an entire field in and of itself, which is biochemistry. And then you have the lightning struck tower, which naturally, to me, it seems to relate to the internet, right? And so if you're starting your journey as a seeker, I'd say you should probably meditate on the Arcana, but try not to emphasize too much on the fact that they're used for magic, and focus more on what is called the choice, which is card 22 or 0, depending on who you ask, which is called the fool or the choice, the individual who chooses what they're going to be, what's in the cards, right? But that's only one application of them. Again, like there is the magician, which is like an actual position. Then there's the magician, which is consciousness. And then there's the magician, which is the matrix of the mind, right? And so you can see it's kind of like a layered thing. The matrix concept actually comes from, I believe, Carl Jung, who spent many years studying the tarot. Got a text. Change of topic. It seems to me that a lot of people are really fascinated with dating culture these days. They say that society is having a hard time, but honestly, I think that sort of thing should really be just avoided by society. I think there's a reason why individuals are, having a hard time with that. I'd say you should probably give it some serious thought as to the meaning as to why that's such a high priority in people's minds. Yeah, I'm actually having a hard time here because when I was doing my podcast in the past, I would spend 45 minutes meditating on a topic that I wanted to talk about. And I'm just doing this just kind of stream of consciousness. So and I'm trying not to have a lot of ums and too many pauses, right? So I may sound a bit scatterbrained, but it's partly just because I'm new to this format of being in front of a game and trying to think at the exact same time. I don't have two monitors anymore, which I used to. That would have made things much easier, as I could focus on the game and stare at a second monitor and then kind of have a script of what I wanted to talk about. And I do not have a script right now, so it's kind of just a stream of consciousness. But about the game, one of the things that kind of irks me about RuneScape is it's really time consuming, but you can't actually complete the game anymore. It's reached the point where you have to have had a completionist cape in the past in order to get a completionist cape now. You need to complete certain mini games, which they're dead content, right? No one is playing them. And probably the only way through that is through guilds, or clans rather. If you do have a clan, you guys could potentially fix that. The inability of the dead content, Another thing I wanted to talk about is just the general state of mental health in America. And like, I know a lot of people are struggling really hard because I have my friends Emily and Levi who have mental illness. My friend Michaela has mental illness. My buddy Sam has mental illness. My mother was depressed. My buddy Josh is like the only one who's holding it together. I don't even know how he does it. He knows qigong. I guess that's his key power there. But yeah, like most people I know, like my siblings, they all have some type of mental illness quirk, right? And it's really hard to isolate like what the cause is of all the mental illness, because like it's everywhere. It's rampant. Um, I mean, my first thought is partly that's just because like we share a collective mind. I know that that sounds kind of superstitious, that we have a hive mind, but there is a bit of one. And if you seek that, you'll probably find it, is that there is a hive mind. Everyone does have a degree of mental connectivity. Um, but yeah, I don't exactly know why it is. But I did want to say, like, I'm a guy who's been hospitalized 10 times for mental illness. And I'm finally seeing the other side of it. And, it's a long road, but I mean, if you have mental illness, I'm going to warn you, you don't get a lot of outside help other than medications. And the medications will only take you so far. When you get hospitalized, you get in the ambulance, which is going to shock you. You're probably going to get knocked unconscious for some reason. It's one of the weird things about hospitals is that they put a blanket over you, you're in the ambulance, and you're just out. You're gone. You're asleep. And then you wake up inside of the hospital, and you're stuck there for about 3 days, maybe a week. My case was different, though, because I was homeless. And if you're homeless, they will not let you out for months until they find housing for you. Unless they're like a different type of place. But they will try to get you on Social Security, which will take some time. And you're going to be in the hospital waiting for that to process. And again, it's the American government. It's slow. The Social Security is not going to come in one day. It's going to come in months. And they will not cut you free until after you have it. So, yeah, so the entire medical system as well, like, and this is across the country, right? And I've done the rodeo, man. Like, I know where that stuff leads, right? So people, they go back into the hospital and like, honestly, it's so important to not try and hurt yourself. Like, just don't do it. Like, it's terrible because, I mean, the entire medical system is like at the brink. No one wants to work there anymore. It's a terrible job being around crazy people, and there's not enough nurses. There's not enough funding. There's not enough research. So like, try your absolute best to just like care for yourself. And part of that is having a group of people you rely on. Part of it is just common sense. Like, don't smoke pot. I smoked pot. That's part of the reason I got schizophrenia, is because I smoked marijuana. It's not a good idea, and the road is long, so brace yourself for the endless miles. You know what I mean? And, yeah, it's like being at the hospital. I can tell you what it's like. It has a smell of cleaning supplies. The floor is all like, hard linoleum or whatever. There's a lot of pretty nurses, but some dudes as well. A lot of people there are delinquent. They're not generally like high society individuals, but some of them are there as well. And yeah, like, there's only so much help they can give you because they don't really know what to do, and there's not enough people working on it. And like Jordan Peterson's advice, man, just take the medication. If only because that's just good manners. Just be obedient, take your medication, stay away from alcohol and drinking. And I know I said earlier that when I wrote my book, I did it in 3 days with the help of cigarettes, alcohol, and coffee. I have cut those things out of my life. Now I just vape and drink soda. So yeah, like, you're going to want to avoid like getting unbalanced. I know that a lot of life is like a tightrope act, and like, everyone is terrified of falling off, because if they lose their job, they lose their house, they lose so many things, and everyone is just so stressed. And all I'm trying to say is like, just kind of a caution here. Like, if your mental health gets bad, at some point in time, it only gets so good. And I say this out of experience because I don't have a hand. And I know that there is such a thing as like permanent physical illness. And like I was listening to this one guy, he's a comedian, I can't remember which one it was, but he was making a joke about how like, oh yeah, you're 27 and you have like something sore. And it's like, you're immortal. You think that nothing bad is going to happen to you. You're always going to be at optimum health. And that's just an illusion. People get sick, people get old, and like at some point in time, the aches and pains just become a part of life. So, yeah, try and consider that like as best as you can. Like sometimes you're not going to get back to perfect. Like maybe if there's an afterlife and all of that mysterious stuff, reincarnation, but I was born imperfect, and that's just the way life goes. It's like you have something, you have a problem, no amount of science or money can cure it. Like it's a permanent problem, and then that's going to limit things. It's like, well, I don't have a hand, so like I can't be a chef. I can't cut tomatoes with one hand. Like I can try, but I mean, it's never going to be as good with the guy with two hands. Like I can't tie my shoes. It's like, I mean, you adapt, and like, we could pray to Lord Elon that he will give me a bionic hand, but honestly, the Neuralink is so incredibly creepy. And that's like a whole can of worms in and of itself is like, I mean, like, do you really want like a brain machine interface? Like, I mean, isn't that kind of gross and creepy? It's like having something in your brain, but back on topic. Yeah, so like what to expect from the hospital is like, I mean, most of what it is just like a paid vacation, pretty much. Like, that's really what it is. Like, if you're going to work and you go to the hospital, I mean, it's back to work right as soon as you get home. And, like, if you have, like, an apartment and they're keeping you and you can't pay the lease and you lose your apartment, the hospital does not care. That is not their problem. You can ask to leave. They will not let you out, you're going to be stuck inside and there's going to be some dude who has, like, the flu and vomits on the floor. And there's only so many rooms, it's like you could get shipped across the country by an ambulance, and this is why it's so important. Like, dude, whatever you have to do to motivate yourself to fight for your life in that moment when you're thinking of what we all know you're thinking in that moment, like, do not do it. It doesn't matter if you have to do anything else. Just get your mind off of it. Find a place to like sit, pray, or meditate, contemplate, and like process the emotion. Because honestly, there's not that much help from outside. And like, even if you have a therapist, like there's only so much you can solve through conversation. And honestly, some of that stuff just makes it worse. Because one of the hardest hitting things about mental illness, in my experience, is your sense of pride and your self-worth. Because like, I mean, it's like losing levels, man. Like if you're playing RuneScape and like something bad happens to you, it's like you're losing levels. Like if you do there's a word for it, it's, you're not supposed to say it, but you shouldn't really think of hurting yourself. It's critical. But yeah, that's about 20 minutes. I'll cut it off there. Be safe, everyone. Please take your medications, eat some food, go for a walk, kick a ball, meet someone new at a coffee shop. Do what you can to take care of yourself because honestly, it's a tough world out there and we all need to take care of each other and we can't just rely on the doctors to help us because there's not enough of them. And that's kind of depressing, but the love is real, people. So I'll leave it there.